Hello my friends and welcome to this 14th episode of my Cities Skylines project Vedastein, in which we continue building a realistic as possible German city. Now for today's episode I want to do the city park and the surrounding area, so to say. I kinda avoided to do that area for quite some time now. The reason is, as I said quite a few times now, that I wanted to have some nice Art Nouveau buildings next to the city park. And that being said, I did some, but not enough. Because, I don't know, I just didn't feel like doing more. The motivation wasn't right, so to say. And because of that, we had a few of those filler episodes with more or less random content. But now I was at the stadium where I thought I don't want to wait any longer. Fuck it that I don't have enough buildings. For now I'm just building it as it's possible with a few Art Nouveau houses I have and the rest of Fable's houses, and maybe we can change them later when the Art Nouveau set is somewhat bigger and finished. For now, I think it turned out pretty good. Well, now back might be the wrong term. What I'm doing on screen. The first I did in this episode, you already saw it 2 minutes ago, is that I somewhat extended the city theater on the theater square. So we have the old theater building itself, and behind it a somewhat ugly extension, probably from the 50s. And that is something that happened to quite a lot of theater buildings, maybe made during post-war times in the West or post-war times in the East, doesn't matter, where they thought they don't have enough room for practicing their dances or their plays, and so they had to have more room, and very often those old theaters were extended. And so even though I really don't like that, I wanted to have it in the city because it I don't know, it felt natural, if you can follow me in that. So that's what I did at the beginning of the episode. Until now I just did the terrain and moved some of the streets and trains to fit the city park and also the river that we are going to have here. And what you see me doing here is actually creating the river. You already saw that river over there when we built the river promenade and its outlet into the river, into the big river, or its output and the whatever. It's right into the Veda river, and now we are building the stream of the small river itself. This river will flow through the old town, and I have quite some nice ideas for that to have a really interesting scenery in combination with the old town buildings in the old town and this small river. So stay tuned for that. There will be some nice things. So how am I doing this river? I already showed you that way of creating rivers in the second episode, I guess, where I also used a street to to drag the river, and here I'm using elevated pavement paths, but that actually doesn't matter what you use to create the river. And the basic principle is just that you or with the paths or with the street you draw the the flow of the river, and by lowering these paths into the ground, and after that modifying the terrain so it actually keeps in that position when once you delete the paths, you have a pretty how to say, natural flow, a pretty sustainable might be a good word. So because when you drag rivers with terraforming tools, it's easy that you do it somewhat wrong and the water isn't able to flow, and by using this technique here you avoid that, and the water actually flows pretty well. Of course there are still some minor glitches in the terrain around the river that need to be fixed, but that's no big problem. What I also wanted to have in the city park is my Angel of Peace monument from Munich. So I already plopped it here to test out how it fits in with the terrain and the surrounding area and the river, and I already thought that it would fit pretty well there. So I placed it, and here I'm modifying the terrain to have a nice transition from the terrain to the terraces of the monument. And for that as you saw, I used some streets or paths or whatever it was. It doesn't matter, because it's a pretty good way to form the terrain in a very detailed way. Because using the terraform tools, you can of course form the terrain and detail it, but not in a very small scale. And by using streets or paths, you can do it in a very small scale. So that's pretty nice to use it like that. And well, of course, as we have the city park here, I wanted to have it as a park life park, and I used King Leonard's invisible park entrance to have, well, park entrances. Who would have thought? And yeah, that's the whole thing that we're doing here. And now moving to this point over here, as the road next to the park is a bit raised above the level of the park, so to say, here I needed a small stair or whatever to have access to the park itself, so to say. And of course I would also I could have also used just a ramp or like something like that. Might be better for bikers or wheelchair users, which we don't actually have in Cities Skylines now that I talk about it. Wow. Sorry. And but I thought stairs would look more more prestigious maybe, or more classic maybe even. I don't know. Because I imagined that this would be the central point of the park, with the main gate to the one side, or one of the main city gates to one side, and the new town hall to the other side. And that's also how I did it in the end. And well, the reason for me using stairs instead of just a ramp or so. And here I already prepared some benches that I can plop easily into the park area. And I again use these white benches because they well, let's say they feel natural in this area. And I already said it, I placed the old town hall of the city, and on the opposite side of it, the maybe the biggest gate into the old town. And for the city wall, I tried quite a few things. For example, I used Mike Welshman's Tudor houses or Tudor house, modular Tudor house, to give it a German look of a city wall, because usually German city walls, in contrast to English or maybe Western European ones, are somewhat lower and usually have a roof on top of them. I also wanted to achieve that look, and I tried quite a bit, but in the end it didn't work. So again, I'm gonna do my own for that, but we'll see when that will be possible. For now, I think Armesto's wall is more than good enough, actually. And yeah. When I did the theater square, I already built a small portion of the old moat around the city wall, and now I'm just continuing this by again using my technique with paths or streets terraforming, and then using Ronix's river stream decals to have the illusion of a creek that runs through the old moat. When it's about the city wall, how I imagine it is that the old medieval wall that we still have here today was, well, let's say extended during Renaissance times, when cannons were invented and old medieval walls weren't just secure enough anymore. But those walls then, during the industrialization, were too big for the cities, so they couldn't grow anymore. And so in most European cities, those Renaissance city walls had to be destroyed. You can see that in, for example, Vienna, where they put a majestic ring street on the place where runs the city wall, the Renaissance city wall was. And in our scenario here, they, as I said, extended the medieval city wall by a Renaissance city wall. And when during times of industrialization, when people started to rethink the times of Middle Ages and kinda romanticized them, they wanted to have this medieval wall back. So in our town here, they dismantled the Renaissance city wall but kept the medieval city wall and built a park in front of it. And I think it that whole scenario makes at least enough sense, because stories like that actually happened in a few German cities, but it also gives a nice look to have the city wall next to our main city park, and not just the old town directly next to the park. So it gives a good transition, and also a very good photo motif for tourists. And now that the base layout of the city park is done, I can start dragging bushes, or placing bushes and dragging hedges and all that stuff to make it a green city park where people can enjoy their time and can relax or play games or whatever. And I wish it would be possible to have people in the park that not just walk over the paths and sit on the benches, but actually go on the lawn or in the grass areas, on the meadows, whatever, and have a picnic or just lay on the grass or on a blanket on the grass and have a nice time. Sunbathing or whatever, because I think it's not only a German thing that you go into parks in the summer and enjoy the sun or whatever. So it would be nice if they also would have implemented that into the game, but well, they didn't. So to avoid the kind of emptiness of the park, because as I said, there are no people using the lawn areas, I just placed more trees instead. So I guess the park has more trees than would be usual in German city parks, but at least it doesn't look that empty, and so I kinda found a solution between realism and functionality. And of course, I'm using decals to give the terrain, to give the ground a bit more, detail. And that's actually it. And by lowering them into the ground, that's a good way to give them, to give the ground just a slight glimpse of detail. And not to overdo it. And now we are doing the surroundings of the city park, and you already saw me placing one Art Nouveau house, and I would have wished to have the whole area here placed with all Art Nouveau houses, but as I said, I don't know, I just didn't have the right motivation to do more. So for now, it's fine, or it's again mostly Faint-built houses that we have here. And here we are in the real city center. I mean, we are directly next to the new town hall, and so I thought it also would be okay to have a few more back houses and to have larger buildings than, for example, next to the station. And here next to the roundabout we did some episodes ago, I thought it would make sense to have somewhat open square here, and that's what I did. And to give it a better look, I just added a statue and later on a small market. And now continuing the whole area here, I'm just placing some more of Faint-built houses, but also a few of my Art Nouveau houses. And I was glad that Faint-built also did an Art Nouveau corner building, that is the big white corner building you see there. And so yeah, I was glad that I could use that. And I already said that in this area, as we are in the real, yeah, let's say downtown of the city, and actually next to the town hall, I thought it would be okay to have some more back houses. So that's what I did here. Now for once back to the monument in the city park. Yeah, I just did a let's say small river promenade maybe. It's not really a promenade, it's just a river front thing-ish thing, I don't know. It's just a small area in front of the small river here. I don't know how to call it. It's I think you'll see it and you'll understand it. That should be all I can say about that, because it's just, yeah, here is the river and the monument, and I placed Avanya's key here so people can go to the side of the river and, yeah, I don't know, watch the water flow or sit on a bench and enjoy the sun or whatever. It's just a nice thing to have, but nothing particularly special for that I would have a better name, so to say. And so here in the also in this area, I really like using leaves and theme decals to give it a more overgrown look maybe, or to give it a more natural look. So it actually looks as if being inside of nature, because especially in Cities Skylines, it's easy to have areas that are just too clean to be realistic, and so I use a lot of stains and cracks and dirt and leaves and all that to give it a more used and by that also authentic look to it. And here I'm extending defining the flow of the river by again using elevated pavements that are sunken into the ground that I later change with invisible paths. And now the last major thing we do in this episode is an empty area behind the town hall that is used as a somewhat rundown parking space. So the story behind that would be that maybe here was a building, or here were a few buildings that, for example, burned down or whatever, got destroyed in some way. And some businessmen thought, why not do a parking space here for all the tourists? But he didn't want to spend too much money on that, so he just put gravel in there and painted a few lines on the gravel, and that's it. And nowadays the city can't find an investor that would build a new building there, so it's just this weird, not very nice spot directly next to the town hall today. And for today, that's it with this episode, or at least with my commentary. Enjoy the cinematics at the end of this video. If you like my videos, if you like this project, if you like me, whatever it is, feel free to like the video or click the small thumbs up icon. If you really like me, feel free to write a comment, feel free to share my videos, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel. If you want to support me in or for whatever, be it my assets or my videos, you can do so on Patreon, and by that also a huge thank you to my Patreons that already support me in a way more than I would have expected, so thanks to you, my friends. And that's it from my side. Enjoy the cinematics in just a few seconds, and we'll see us again next week. Have a nice time until then, take care of yourselves, and bye.